I think everybody is feeling the same kind of nervousness about the world. Right now, we're living in scary times. While I'm sitting here watching myself painting away and having all kinds of congestion that's getting in the way of me and my voice and so on. This is important. I've been telling myself I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it. I am going to get this done. I have a very important message today, and it's not just about painting plastic model kits. It's about something more important than that. So if you'll bear with me briefly, hopefully we can get there. And maybe if you want to, you can just turn the sound off. You don't want to hear me going on and on. You can turn the sound off and watch what I'm doing with the brush. A good quality camel hair brush and thin paint. You cannot go that far wrong. It's very thin paint. For those of you that insist on having a mathematical ratio, I'll tell you it's about 1 part paint to 1 part water. It's golden so flat. That may be a little bit too thin, but it seems to be working here. You can see it. And that's a camel hair brush from our friends at Andrew Mack. Anyway, that's not really what I'm going to talk about. I wish it was. I wish all I had to do was just talk about brushes and paint, and yeah. No. I think we all woke up this morning, Friday the 13th, 2025, and thinking, well, things couldn't possibly get any worse. and things got worse. I remember very clearly a year that was actually scarier than this one. It was the year 1968. And a couple of weeks ago, I started thinking about the similarities between now and the late 1960s. And I started doing some reading, some research. And I discovered something that basically kind of caused me to want to reevaluate just about everything I thought I knew. And I'm going to share that with you right now because I'm reevaluating my presence on YouTube. YouTube may not be a good place. Okay? It may not be a good place. I'm just going to talk about this and we'll figure it out together. You see, when I was digging around in 1968 trying to figure out, the history, that's what I do, by the way. That's my thing. Well, I was reading about 1968 and all of the various ways in which 1968 is probably scarier than now. And I lived through 1968. I was there, so I know how scary it was. It was so scary, my dad, who was a pretty tough guy, completely freaked out and went from being a business owner to becoming a kind of doomsday prepper, survivalist kind of dude. And my whole life got turned upside down. I'm not going to go into all that biographical stuff, but I will say that it was pretty shocking. 1968 was a scary, scary time. There were a lot of students in Paris, France, for example, that were protesting just about everything. And part of the inspiration for their protests, while they were, doing stuff like what's going on in LA right now, they were tearing up the streets, burning cars. But the French always have to be a little bit more intellectual than everybody else. They were upset, at least partially, by something called situationism. Now, before you go look that up, I want to warn you that situationism is considered to be extremely dangerous. Yeah, I wish I was kidding. It's so dangerous, in fact, that if you go look it up, you'll find a whole bunch of bogus versions of situationism out there. The truth is that the old original French version was pretty radical stuff. It's considered a form of Marxism, and of course, being French philosophy, it was written up in such a way that nobody on this planet could understand it. I mean, it was completely. If you've read anything, any French philosophy, if you're familiar with existentialism or postmodernism, you know just how wacky it can get. Well, situationism is no exception. But if you think that's ever stopped a Frenchman from writing about it, you are wrong. The thing about it, existentialism, postmodernism, situationism, the thing about it is that all of it is very important. Although it's all kind of hidden within a camouflage of big words and a lot of baloney. So you've really got to dig through a lot of baloney to get to the truth. I'm going to simplify it for you. What all the excitement was about and what all those French students were throwing rocks about is that the system, which we used to call the establishment, back in the day there was something called the counterculture. How often have you heard about that recently? At all? Ever? No, not really, right? The counterculture got buried, and it wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. If you understand situationism, you'll understand the counterculture in a deeper way, and you'll understand why it got buried. Now, I realize that's a lot to absorb all at once, but it's pretty simple stuff when you break it down to the basics. According to situationism, the system, the establishment, the powers that be are trying to turn you into a spectator. Not somebody who does something, not somebody who builds a model, but somebody who watches somebody else do it, especially if you're watching them on a screen. Now, I think most of us, maybe at one time in our lives, kicked a football around with our friends. But as we get older, we stop doing that and we start watching other people kick footballs around on television. Or maybe if we're a real hard case, we get out there and go to the stadium and we tell ourselves that we're actually participating, supporting the team. But we're not kicking the ball around ourselves. We're not getting fit. We're not gaining anything from the experience. The joy of victory, the agony of defeat, none of that is actually happening. In fact, what's happening is we're sitting there like a zombie watching it. We might be making noises from time to time, but no matter how much we try, we can't really escape the fundamental fact that we're spectators. Right now, assuming that you've been able to pull yourself away from the news channel and watch me, you're watching me building a plastic model airplane kit. You're not doing it yourself. That makes you a spectator. And if you think for a moment that this is somehow something that you should feel guilty about, that you had control over this, you are wrong. The entire culture that we live in is aimed at making you a spectator of your entire life. The system we live in wants to take away all of your agency, all of your power, and make you a spectator in your life. Now, I know that's a pretty major-sized hazelnut to try to chew on, but let's simplify it, because that's the only way anything ever gets done. You've got to take it in small steps. being a maker, being a creator, being a builder, even if, my God, we're just talking about plastic models, doing that is a major investment. You're putting yourself on the line. You could fail. You might succeed. There's a give and take. There's a reality in it that involves not just your hands moving. See, that's one thing that's very difficult sometimes for people to understand. When you're working on that model, you're not working on the model exactly. In fact, what you're working on is yourself. Now, I didn't come up with that idea. A genius named Robert Pirsig, who passed away a few years ago, came up with that idea. He was talking about motorcycle maintenance and doing it yourself instead of trying to turn it over to some expert and watching them do it. He was talking about actually getting your hands dirty and getting in there and doing it yourself. Pirsig's book is not nearly as difficult to read as the book by the French philosopher Guy Debord, which is entitled The Society of the Spectacle. You want to read something heavy? Okay, look, you don't want to read that. Forget it. But instead of reading The Society of the Spectacle, I strongly advise you to get a copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and maybe even Pirsig's other book, Lila. Read those. And those books will tell you something about working on yourself. Not working on a model, working on yourself. The fundamental project here is you, inside your soul. That's what you're working on when you're working on a model. It's not just some weird comical activity. Because if you begin to believe that, then the next thing you know, you're going to be sitting in front of a screen watching somebody else do it. And when somebody asks you, why aren't you doing this? Why are you watching someone else? Your answer is going to be, well, I don't really know. I just feel like I'm not good enough. I want to see how a real pro does it. And when you see these videos on YouTube where the guy's got the black gloves and the blue background and everything's spotless, and everything is moving at 100 or 1,000 times faster than the actual process, and you're watching this time-lapse video of building some kind of superb model, and it all gets wound up in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe if it's a really fancy ship model, it might take an entire hour. My God, a whole hour. And when you sit there with the black glove and you're watching that, all you're doing is basically being a zombie in some kind of a trance, watching this phenomenon unfolding on a screen. In 1967-68, when the Situationism movement started in France, and these philosophers sat around in coffee shops and talked about it, that's what they were trying to talk about. They were talking about how everything that you do is being taken out of your hands and made into a spectacle where you're supposed to be the spectator and you sit there and watch it. Watch somebody else, watching somebody else do it. Your whole life is being turned into some kind of spectacle, and you become a passive observer, not a participant. Now, back in the 80s, there was a magazine called The Whole Earth Review. I still deeply and passionately love that magazine. It was a counterculture magazine, and it was all about tools and ideas. In other words, you get these tools, get these ideas, and you do it for yourself. It's not about survivalism. It's not about some kind of being afraid. It's about building that inner self, that inside you that you are working on when you're working on a model or anything else. That process won't occur if you're watching somebody else do it. As a spectator, you are not doing the necessary work. You're not deriving anything out of it. Now, I don't hate spectating, but I'm telling you, there are times when I really do despair. When's the last time you played an instrument and sang a song? When's the last time you sang a song? Or do you feel like only professionals should sing out loud? I can't do it. I'm not good enough. Same thing goes for dancing. Same thing goes for drawing. Same thing goes for anything that actually involves you living your life. You can see that the society of the spectacle is in place, especially when everybody who rides a bicycle has to put on a special bicycle uniform because they're ashamed. They can't just ride their bicycle. Oh, no. That's much too pedestrian. Now, I can't go into all the 1,000,001 ways that the system teaches you that you're not good enough, but the system will teach that lesson over and over and over and over again. One of the things that I thoroughly hate about the school system, I thoroughly hate the whole thing, from its rotten roots up to its branches. But the school system definitely disempowers you. It teaches you that you're a failure and that you're not good enough. And even if you are fortunate enough to be good at something, let's say you're the captain of the football team, good for you. But they're going to figure out some way to tell you that you're no good on some other level. Maybe you flunked out of algebra. How many captains of football teams flunk algebra? And no matter how many times that they were patted on the back and told that they were really good at one thing, they've always got that little thing in the back of their head telling them that I didn't quite measure up. Then later on in life, the captain of the football team is working behind the counter at the auto parts store or whatever, and in comes the nerd looking for parts for his brand new Ferrari because he's making, a salary somewhere in the $200,000 to $300,000 range, working in one of these tech companies. The football captain is going to sit there at the age of 35 wondering how he's ever going to be able to pay for everything he's supposed to pay for. And he's thinking, gosh, I really am second rate. See how the society we live in tells us that? It reinforces that message over and over again. And if you think that that guy who came in for the Ferrari parts is gloating, he is not. The guy that came in for the Ferrari parts, that guy thinks he's inadequate. He's comparing his $200,000 salary to somebody else that he knows about that makes $2 million or $2 billion, for that matter. There's always somebody out there that's better than you are, and that is a big part of what's wrong. Let's take a look at plastic model building. Let's look at something that's right there in my wheelhouse. I don't like the International Plastic Modeler or whatever it is, society. Is it Modeling Society or Modeler Society? I don't know. I don't like them because they tend to make things into a competition. Now, I guess I could be just, out of line, but that competition BS is the beginning of it. Once you start to think that model building is a competition, you're well on your way down the road. You're going to be flying down the road towards spectatorship, spectatorhood, whatever the word is. You're going to be a spectator because you're going to start believing that you can't win. I could never be a champion. I could never do this well enough. I'm just not competitive. The next thing you know, especially nowadays when we've got YouTube and abominations like my channel, where you can go on there and watch me do it. Say, I'm going to watch somebody else do it. Now, I'm not going to watch that crazy brush painter guy because he keeps insisting that I should do it myself. No, I'm going to watch one of those other guys with the black gloves. You know, the Black Glove Society. They're going to show me how to do it right. So I can sit back, sip on my beer, have a pretzel, and watch someone else living my life for me. Does that seem to you like a good idea? Because absolutely nothing about that is going to be building your inner strength. In fact, it's going to be making you weaker in every way. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a strong suspicion that the system is deliberately trying to make you weaker. It doesn't want you to come into your own. It doesn't want you to understand who you are. It doesn't want you to learn anything concrete and significant. You remember the Whole Earth Review that I was talking about just a few minutes ago? The Whole Earth Review was a magazine about doing it yourself. Again, not in a survivalist type way, not in a panicky type way, but just learning how to do things. Now, maybe you don't really care about plumbing. You don't want to be a plumber. In an emergency, you might want to know a little bit about plumbing, but frankly, you just don't want to be bothered with it. That's fine. But maybe you're very interested in woodworking, and you'd kind of like to know something about building a deck. But somewhere between the process of building a deck and actually getting in there and building the damn thing, you're going to get sent a message that's going to tell you that your deck building skills are no good. And that message is going to come at you from so many different directions. From your partner, who's going to say, nah, you think you can build a deck? What do you know about deck building? And on and on and on. The people who are closest to you, that you trust the most, are going to be the first ones to get in line to tell you can't do it. What the Whole Earth Review tried to do was provide a way for people to get past that kind of discouragement. They wanted to provide a way so that you could say, I may not know exactly how to do this, but I know where to find out how. I know where to go looking for the information. Once I get the information, then I can figure out how to straighten these boards. I can figure out what kind of clamps I'm going to need. I can figure out what kind of stain I'm going to need. I can figure out what to do so that this job will turn out to be well done. And then once I've done it once, I will know how to do it even better next time. And then, of course, the system wants you to believe, well, then you're going to go in the deck building business. No, I'm just going to be able to build a deck. And then the next thing I'm going to learn how to do is play the guitar. I don't have to be Eddie Van Halen to play the guitar. I don't need somebody's permission. I can just play it. And I don't have to become a professional guitarist to play the guitar from time to time to satisfy myself and the people around me. It's a lot more fun to play the guitar than to listen to it being played on a recording. If I know how to build a deck and play a guitar, next thing you know, I'm going to be learning how to change the oil in my automobile or motorcycle or whatever I'm changing the oil in. Then I'm going to start figuring out how to do other things. Maybe I'm going to learn how to do some camping. Maybe I'm going to learn how to do, just about everything that you can do yourself. I mean, I not only say that I would do my own dental work if I could figure out a way, but I have actually done some of my own dental work. The fact is, if you have a tooth that breaks and it's got a sharp edge on it, get in there with a file and file it down. You don't have to make an appointment with their excellency, the dentist, to get their special permission so that you can sit in there and pay them $1,000 for the privilege. You can do it yourself. Now, you may want to go ahead and get them to do a more serious repair, but if I could figure out a way to do that, to get the tools and ideas, I would do it myself. That goes for everything. You're always better off doing it yourself. Because when you do it yourself, you're not only fixing the problem, but you're fixing every future version of that problem that might come down the road. And again, I'm not preaching some kind of survivalist mentality. I'm talking about being an all-arounder, not a specialist. I mean, Persig came down on the side of being an all-arounder, and so did Robert Heinlein, another guy that I think probably is considered problematic by some people. He said you should be able to sing a song, build a fire, cook a dinner, fight a battle, build a house. Every individual should know how to do these things. Specialization is for insects. We're living in a world more and more where they're trying to get us to super specialize to the point where we're there as an asset. They can push a button or turn a valve and get us to go to work and then switch us off again so we just go back to being a zombie in a state of trance, sitting in front of a screen, watching somebody else do what we should be doing ourselves. The world of 2025 is a scary place. It's sometimes almost too scary. But it's not so scary when you realize that the mission here, the job that we have come to Earth to do, is to work on ourselves. We're the project we came here to work on. And one way that you work on that project is by doing things. Don't watch somebody else build a model on a screen. Don't sit there in front of a screen watching somebody else kick a football. Go out and get your own football and kick it around in your own yard or wherever. Go out, don't listen to somebody play the guitar. Go out and get your own guitar and play it. Learn to do things. You don't have to, and you can't learn to do everything. You're probably not going to be able to do brain surgery on yourself. I haven't tried that yet, but yeah, I'll let you know how it turns out. The important thing is that you do as much as you can that's appealing to you. The secret to this whole thing is that desire is the first thing you need before you can get anything done. I once had a very interesting discussion with a fellow back when I still believed in politics and I was hanging out at the Libertarian Party headquarters. Oh, let me tell you, that's a story. Anyway, he told me he didn't think that he felt that you didn't really need any kind of emotion to build a fence. It was all rational. And I said, no, you absolutely need emotion to build a fence. Because the first thing you have to have in order to build a fence is you have to have the desire to build it. If you don't have that, you're never going to have a fence. And desire is an emotion. Emotions come first. Then all the rational stuff comes behind that. You'll never learn something like that watching somebody else do it on a screen. The only way you're going to learn any of that stuff is by doing it. Action is critical to human life. Okay, to the extent that I have been guilty of turning you into a spectator, I want you to know that I am sincerely sorry. I am not going to turn this channel into an entertainment medium, and I'm going to try to be as unentertaining as possible. If I stay on YouTube at all. Meanwhile, take care of yourself.